All right, hi everyone. My name is Dan Gordon. I'm a technical marketer at Gitlab. Thanks for hanging in there for this last session. I'm going to talk about a complete DevOps platform as a single application and why that's not a totally crazy idea. So show of hands, kind of to get you guys a little awake too. How many of you have like at least a couple of these tools in your stack that you have to deal with? Maybe more than a couple. Yeah, so we hear this a lot when we're talking to our customers and to prospects and to different folks out there trying to convert to a DevOps methodologies. And the challenge is not maybe necessarily exactly these tools, but the challenge is what's below, which is all these tools need to be integrated. And I know we're here talking about a lot of different tools together working, and the general idea of Unix that makes it so powerful is pipelining lots of different little small tools together that do their job well. So it seems logical to do it this way, to take the best of the point tools and put them all together. But the challenges that we keep hearing folks are having is maintaining the versions, maintaining the compatibility between all the different pieces that come together. And so we formed this theory, and we had we looked at a study from Gartner that from 2017 that said about 87% of organizations that are trying to convert to DevOps are actually not satisfied with the results. They didn't get where they expected to get in the last 5 to 6 years. And we looked at that and said, okay, well, there's got to be a better way. And so this is actually Gitlab. And what we strive to do is be a complete DevOps platform for the as a single application. We started as an SCM system, actually an open source version of GitHub, and then we grew from there, added CI, CD, Kubernetes is an integral part of what we do nowadays. And so this turns out to be pretty powerful when it comes to helping organizations get to DevOps behaviors and helping to support the cultural changes necessary. But this is not an entirely new idea. Before 2007, this was pretty similar to my personal productivity tool chain. Right? I had a phone separate from my email, separate from my camera. If I wanted to take a picture and send it to somebody, I had to put my chip in the camera, if I actually had a chip in my camera, take the picture, take the chip out of my camera, put the chip in the reader, plug the reader into my PC, copy the picture from my PC onto my PC, or from the chip onto my PC, open up the email, et cetera, you get it. But after a little while, we got this integration. We got a single intuitive user experience, single data model with integrations, mind you, but this took a lot of those point tools and put them together. And the phone, the calendar, the camera, the web browsers, and this enabled all new capabilities. This enabled us to be more productive with those different tools. So we started having things like mobile mapping, location-based services, intelligent alerts, mobile e-commerce, ride sharing, things that we just take for granted today. So this is not an entirely new idea. This is similar to what GitLab has gone after, a complete DevOps platform for a single application, taking point tools like project management, SCM, CI/CD, issue tracking, security scanning, license compliance, yes, Kubernetes configuration is part of that. And that has enabled a lot of different capabilities that we're pretty excited about and that our customers seem to be happy with. Moving security left naturally out of the box, seamless collaboration, full accountability and traceability without any extra configuration from one end of code change all the way through into production and monitoring, real-time feedback, complete DevOps built in. And so that is all the marketing slides. So that is actually what I want to show you. And we'll spend the rest of the time there. Okay, so this is Gitlab, an instance of Gitlab. Right now I'm at a project group level, so we're able to organize, as you would imagine, in your organizations, sub-organizations, et cetera. I've got a simple group, GitLab EKS. I've got a few applications in there. In this particular case, I have Kubernetes configured at the group level. So we'll take a look at that. And It's simple configuration that I'm able to do to actually connect it to GitLab. That needs to be done one time by an administrator or by the team owner. And then everybody, the idea here is then the developers can just use it. They can not have to worry about the configuration, owning it, making changes to it. And so we can see here I have a EKS cluster connected. Right now, the scope I have is set to star, so that means all environments, but I can just as easily say I'm going to have one set of clusters for my production systems, and as you'd expect, a different set of clusters for my QA, et cetera. We automatically, of course, talk to the APIs, and we pull off information from how the health of the cluster is and present that. There's a set of helper tools that are installable by Helm chart to help integrate nicely with GitLab, such as the Prometheus monitoring. And the configuration is just, again, what you're pretty much used to, the certs and the tokens. These were all automatically generated and put in place. And so that's the configuration, that's it. And then we're done and ready to go. Back up at this level here, at the group level, if let's say I'm working on this particular app, Tanuki 3. So if I look at the operations, that is now available to me because it's propagated down from the group, which means that I can use that without having to do any or own any of the configuration. So let's go ahead and take a look at that, and we'll walk through a scenario where I've got something that I want to develop or make a change I want to make to an app. And let's see how that all comes together. So we have boards, this one fairly empty. I have an issue that needs to be dealt with. I can pull it over and own it and take ownership of it. So I'll assign that to myself. So here's an issue. Here's a problem that somebody's defined. We've got a generic, boring Spring Boot page. We need to gussy it up a little bit. And so with GitLab, I'm at this point where I want to start working. Let's say I've already had the conversation with whoever put in the issue. We can do that through the system here. And I'm aware of what needs to be done. When I'm ready to start working, I just need to click Create Merge Request. Merge request is like a pull request is what we call them. We think that makes more sense. But what that does is that becomes now the central repository that all of the information about the change that we're making comes to. So you can see that in the merge request here, GitLab is automatically connected to the issue that we came from. It's created a branch for us so that we're ready to start working. And it's connected it all together for us. So there's the branch. Now I can edit that in the web IDE that's built in, or I can use my own IDE, VI on the command line, whatever I'm comfortable with. In the end, in the bottom part, it's all Git. So as long as I'm pushing back with Git, it's going to come back into this branch. It's going to come back to this repository, and the rest of the system will know what to do with it. So I'm going to do a little bit of cake in the oven here, so you don't have to watch me edit the file and start a pipeline. And I'm going to switch over to this one, which is exactly a duplicate of that previous project, except I've already made the edits and run it through. And so we can see there's actually more information captured now in this merge request. But let's jump down so we can see the changes, because that's also captured, the commits, the pipelines that ran, the changes that I made. So I made a simple background color change. I changed the message and added a logo here. But that's all there for me to see and do, to know what I did. Once that's been done, a pipeline gets kicked off automatically and attached to that merge request. We can see that that ran through here already, but let's take a look at that pipeline. So this pipeline is what we call auto DevOps. It's basically a best practice out-of-the-box pipeline from working with the organizations we've worked with, working on getting to DevOps type release and delivery methodologies. And this pipeline you can use without configuring it. It will just, if you drop your code into the repository, this pipeline will pick up and run through and do all the right things. You can take this pipeline and add your own tests or your own information, your own jobs to it, or you can make your own pipeline and you can pull out parts of it, like the container scanning, and use that in your pipeline. So completely flexible. We're focusing on this one because it's out of the box and it cuts across a lot of the pieces of functionality of the product. And so it's going to pick up my code, take a look at it, figure out how to build it using Heroku build packs. It's going to then take the result of that, put it into a container image, and upload that into our container registry. There is one built into GitLab. You can also use external ones, such as Amazon's. And then it's going to kick off a series of tests. Now, these 6 tests, are going to run in parallel. The system will scale automatically to what's necessary. It's going to run code quality tests, container scanning tests to make sure that there's no vulnerabilities in our app environment. It's going to run dependency scanning to look at vulnerabilities in all the dependent software. It's going to run license management or license compliance scanning to make sure that we're not accidentally adopting new licenses that may not be compatible with our business plans. It's going to run static application security testing to look for known vulnerability signatures in the code, like buffer overflows. It's going to also run the developer's unit tests. Now, when I say it's going to run it, this is not just a template that we're giving you. This is actually out of the box with the actual scanners and everything in place. So you don't have to get the application that's going to do that and install it and then integrate it into this pipeline. It's all there. And that's happening pretty far left right after the build at every change. And so at this point, we've got code. We've figured out our image is solid or not. We're going to set up what we call a review app. Now, this is when GitLab's working tight with EKS and the underlying Kubernetes API, and it's going to actually go ahead and take our image. It's going to set it up in a namespace in our cluster. It's going to set up the DNS, the routing. It's going to set up the TLS certs. It's going to get it online and make it available for everybody to look at. So this is a change. This is off my MR. I haven't merged back my code back into the default branch yet. And I have a personal environment, that a UAT, if you will, or staging environment, that now I can look and play with my code changes live in the app. Now, not only is that valuable because I can look at it as a developer, but I can also send it to my stakeholders. I can have my business look at it, my customers, my UX folks, my quality folks. And so they can look at that, but then this is transient. So when I'm done and I merge, then the system, GitLab, is going to go back and clean this up and take it out of your cluster. The other thing that's nice about this, though, is that because I have a live running app, I'm now able to run tests like dynamic application security testing, which we do. So we're doing this with OWASP ZA proxy, and it's going to come back and hit the app. The default is to not be super aggressive, but you can actually twiddle that bit and be a little bit more aggressive on the testing. And this is going to look for things that you can't find in the code, things like vulnerabilities like configuration mistakes that may give somebody more privileges than they should have, for example. And then we're also going to do performance testing because, again, we have a live app. So we're going to use site speed IO. We're going to come back and do browser performance testing. We originally baseline this, and we're going to be able to tell you things like, hey, that change you just made the user experience 10% slower. Yikes. So with all this information before I've merged, that's all going to flow back into our MR. And that becomes the central point. So here's that review app. I can click into it and actually go interact with the app. That's the simple change I made to a simple app. It can be a whole full set of complex apps that I'm interacting with there. The information is also going to come back here, my code quality report, my security. So in this particular case, I didn't generate any new vulnerabilities, but I can also go see the full report, which is everything that's been found on this branch up to date. And so I can see the vulnerabilities that we've found that need to be addressed. From here, I can get more details about those vulnerabilities. I can go take a look at them. I can create an issue, which will pull that data down and create an issue so I can track the work that needs to be done to fix that. Or I can dismiss it with or without a comment. If I do dismiss it, it's going to bubble up to our team level, our team dashboard, and then again, even higher up to the security admin dashboard. And also here, I have the license management results. Again, no new licenses were brought in with my simple change. But again, I can see all the licenses that are that I'm using in all the different components across the across this branch. So I can see things like licenses that may be against my policy, and I can take action to resolve that. So let's say I'm good here. I've gone through all those, and I'm like, hey, this is great. I want to go ahead and merge it. I can do that. And when I merge it, it's going to go ahead and kick off a new pipeline. Again, I'm going to switch to another one in the oven so we don't have to wait for that. So it went ahead and made the merge. It started a pipeline, and this pipeline is now not the CI pipeline, it's the delivery or the release pipeline. So it looks pretty much the same in the beginning because I'm going to want to make sure that I rerun those tests so that I catch anything that might have changed between the last time I ran the test. But then it's going to go ahead and deploy my application into staging environment. And the way that I have this configured is to have it stop at staging and let me do a manual incremental rollout, which is what you're seeing here on the right under production. So I can pick how much I want to roll out at once. I just did 100% here earlier. Or I can set it very simply with the flick of a switch so that it actually will just push all the way through to production if I'm ready for that, if I have that much faith in my pipeline. And so that's great. And that means that eventually I have my application installed. So here under the operations menu, and you see we have lots of capabilities that kind of are moving towards progressive delivery as well, feature flags, Kubernetes configuration, serverless error tracking, tracing. We're just going to take a look at the environments for now. And this environment is giving me a tracking of everything that I've put into the environment from this application. We can see with the direct integration that I've got an idea of how many instances of the application I have installed, so how many pods am I on in the Kubernetes, in the EKS cluster. I can see the identity of the pods as well as what state they're in, and I can get directly to the pod logs, so I can do troubleshooting if it's necessary. Even further, I can jump in and hop onto the containers and go looking around and make sure things are laid out the way that, that I expect them to be. I can always, of course, go and look at the live running app to make sure this is similar to the review app, but this is the one in production. So this would allow me to, for example, to take a look at maybe just to do a spot check on staging versus what my production is. But actually even further, if I look at production at this level, or click on the environment, I get the play-by-play of what's been installed into that environment over time. And I can roll back to any one of those at any point. Which is great and all, but DevOps is not just about creating code and putting it onto a server. It's about understanding how that code acts and how our changes act in the real world when users are using it. And for that, we need monitoring, which is why we have Prometheus built in. So without any extra work or implementation, every application into every environment that I deploy is automatically monitored in several ways. So I have information, for example, from the Nginx about the latency and throughput of my application. I've also got information about the underlying infrastructure, so the pods that the app are sitting on and the cluster that it's sitting on, the CPU and the memory usage. And I can zoom in certain areas, look around, et cetera. And I can see, for example, that maybe I have a little bit of a spike in certain areas, so I can correlate my deployments, which is what this rocket here is, with the behavior that I might see in the application monitoring. And with that, that means that if I find the one little pixel magic spot here, it's a bug. Let's try a different one. Nope. Looks like it walked off the edge. So with that, if I wasn't experiencing this right now, then I would be able to, I could go straight into the change that was made to the deployment that happened. demo gods are not with me tonight, so I will not do that. But what that does is that gives me access to the change that was made right from the spot where I see that there might be a behavioral problem, and that gets me information about what was changed, who changed it, and then that gives me my full feedback loop. So that is a complete DevOps platform in a single application, and that's GitLab. Thank you.
Perfect.